Yo, welcome back to another video. Now, this is going to be talking about floor 50 for the Worldlines. I should have done this earlier, but I had some things going on, but now I'm free. I'm also a little bit sick, so if I sound a little bit nasally, that is why. We are going to be talking about floor 50 in the Worldlines and just additional tips to beat it. So I will first talk about a little bit of hiccups that I did in the guide. First thing is Infinite Tsukiyomi. I did state that enemy movement speed increases per attack. I was just following what it says in game and on the wiki, but unfortunately it's actually per hit. This also includes bleeding damage ticks, so Alucard and Choso are definitely units that you do not want to be using. Alucard at upgrade 4 is hitting 4 times, and then his bleeding is hitting 8 times, so that means that he's increasing movement speed by 24% every single time he attacks. For Choso, it is the exact same thing. At his full AoE, he hits for 5 times and his bleeding ticks for 7 times, so he is also increasing movement speed by 24%. While if you were to use Lancer only hits 4 times at upgrade 7, and he is applying Rupture, which you can apply onto the boss and then sell Lancer if you like, but I do like to keep him because he does have the additional 75% increased damage when hitting one enemy, so he is still very good for damage, unlike using Alucard, or I don't know about Choso's damage these days. The next thing I want to talk about is I shouldn't have done this, but I put up a list showing off units that are recommended when it comes to clearing 450, but that is a list for basically just Dragon Ball Z stages in general. I wasn't really thinking too much because this is an Infinite Tsukiyomi, so we are limited to only using Unbound and Passion and Unknown units. I shouldn't have that there. That is just another little hiccup I did. Alright, so now we are going to basically kind of show an example of how you would set up your units. I can't show a proper example because I have completed this stage on both my 2 characters and I don't want to make another and go through the Worldlines again, so we are just going to be working with Sandbox, but this hopefully should give you a good idea. So I would highly recommend just using Aizen. What you would want to do is you just farm up like normal, and around wave 5 to 6 enemies will start to reach this point in here, and this is where you would want to place your Aizen. Aizen should be able to deal with the enemies, but if he does not, I would just place a second Aizen here or a Lancer down or whatever to just clear out the leaks here. Finish upgrading any of your farms that you have not upgraded. This is going off the fact that I was only using Speedwagon. You can get a lot more money if you do use the Takarota too, but after you've basically upgraded all your farms, you would start upgrading your Aizen all the way up to upgrade 11. I would not go any higher unless you do have a lot more money than normal, like if you are using a Takarota and you can still afford to upgrade a Lancer to upgrade 7. I would recommend going all the way to max upgrade. It's either you go and stop at upgrade 11, or if you have enough money, I would go all the way up to upgrade 14 because he unlocks his Darbo ability, which is a wall that stops enemies for 15 seconds. I can't remember exactly. I did do a showcase on him ages ago, but 10 or 15 seconds it lasts for, so that is a lot of damage you can get on enemies. But if you do not have the money to be able to afford that, I would recommend just keeping him at upgrade 11. When it comes to your other units that you would want to use, is you would want to use a Lancer over any other bleed unit, just as because bleeding increases movement speed every time the bleed ticks. So Lancer is the best option. At upgrade 7, he is only hitting 4 times, which is a lot better than hitting 12 times. It is still not like the greatest thing, but what you can do is once the boss comes into range and he attacks and applies the Rupture, if you do not want to use him as damage, which I would recommend using him as damage still, what you can do is just sell him. The Rupture will still be on the enemies. Now next up, for any more helpful units, what you can do is you can use a Kenpachi as one of the options just to be helpful. You do want him at upgrade 8 though if you are going to use him, which will cost around like 53,000 or 52,000 yen to place and upgrade. This is because he unlocks his second passive, which makes it so every time he gets stunned, he deals a full AoE and he slows all enemies by 30% for 8 seconds within that range, which is pretty good, but it is not the greatest because you do need to upgrade him. He does do a lot of damage though, so he might become a main secondary damaging unit, but because he does cost quite a lot, you might need to lower the amount of upgrades that you put into Aizen, so that is another thing. The next option is to use Baiken. Baiken is by far the best option. This is because you can just place her down and she will do her thing. She is applying tether to enemies that ever get in her range. And what that does is whenever an enemy is tethered within her range, this means that she is permanently slowing them until that enemy leaves the range, which is very good. The other thing that you can do is you can play around with the attached feature or the attached effect that she has with her secondary attack on hidden chain. This makes it so enemies cannot leave this unit's range. So I would place Baiken like right here, basically, so Aizen, it's just in Aizen's aura range basically to hit max, which is pretty good as well. But you do need to kind of play around with it, because if Baiken attacks an enemy right here with this claw, 4 seconds would probably have passed before they have fully walked around this corner. So when they do get to Baiken's range, they will just be able to leave pretty instantly. So you do want to be able to place her down and change her straight away when an enemy is like right here, so that you can get the most effect out of it. But that's kind of getting a bit too complicated, so the best option is just to place Baiken down so she can apply a slow. Your last option is basically Esdeath. Esdeath has a phrase on hit, which is pretty nice. She has an affection mark as well that you can mark onto Aizen, and this is for her time stop, which she unlocks at upgrade 7. This is unlocked at 46,000 from placing and upgrading total. Yeah, so on placement and then upgrading to 7, that costs a total of 46,000. You unlock her time stop, which freezes for 10 seconds. So when the boss gets to Aizen's like max aura range, this is when I would use her ability. And then alongside that, because Aizen has the affection mark, that boss will also be taking 100% more damage from him. That just pairs really well. So those are the 3 options that you can use if you are kind of still struggling even with setup that I have said. If I were to use a Dante, I would probably place him around here like I did in my little showcase. I did get one Dante up to upgrade 10, and then I basically just placed down a second Dante, and I think I only had gotten him up to upgrade 6, and then I also had a Lancer at upgrade 7, I believe. I can't remember if I had a second one, but this is basically the setup I had for Lancer. I think I did have a second one that was upgraded to 7. I basically had this setup for Dante, although I probably would not recommend Dante because he was increasing the movement speed of the enemy quite fast. I would say he is pretty reliant on having Deadeye, so if you do not have Deadeye on Dante, I would not recommend using him. You probably would be able to use John Smith, but I just don't like using him. I don't really use him that often. I only have Fortune on him. Plus, on placement, he is attacking, or he is hitting 8 times. That means that he is going to be increasing the movement speed of enemies by 16% on the first grade. So you would want to try get him off the first attack as soon as possible. But even then, like, I just don't think he does that great a damage at all, because he is not getting buffed by the stage one bit compared to using Unbound or using Passion units. And lastly, for the last unit that you can use to carry or be like pretty good at using, yeah, just to be able to carry, is using Alpha. Now I would use her probably on this corner, like this is where I would place her, mainly because once her buff goes away, you can see she does reach this part of the track. This is kind of just very helpful, because once you do start using her shotgun loop, this is why you would probably want to use her, is for her shotgun loop. Let a unit come into range. As you can see, she gets a buff in her range, so she can actually reach all around here and even back here. Whoops, that's the wrong button. Another one come in, as you can see right here. You can bring in Haruka, you can bring in Subaru to help increase the range a little bit, and maybe you can reach around here as well. Another thing to recommend lastly before we end off this video is make sure that you do have enough money to be able to upgrade Lancer to upgrade 7. This is roughly about 28,000 including his thing. It's actually like nearly 29,000 to get him to upgrade 7. This is so you can apply Rupture, otherwise you're going to have a terrible time trying to out DPS the boss that is regenerating constantly. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it is helpful. There's not much else to say, so if you are struggling, I'm very sorry. Just keep trying out different things, adjust your team over a little bit, you know. Hopefully this is helpful, and hopefully you can complete the Worldlines to get the invincible unit. So yeah, appreciate it if you have watched this far through the video. See ya.